Alright guys, let's go over the changes for Team Ikari Warrior, starting off with Leona. So she's got a mixture of buffs and nerfs, but at the end of the day, net, I think she ends up as a better character. But let's go through. So jumping, neutral jump D, any combo coming off of this is going to have heavy scaling. So that does 100 damage, and the Excalibur by itself does 100 damage. So again, just demonstrating how big the combo scaling is. Now they're going to add additional scaling if you combo into the super. So that does 180 damage, where normally it does 180 damage. So again, really huge combo scaling coming off of that. Next up, so on block, Moon Slash is just going to be a lot more punishable, and just to give you an idea, the opponent is going to be a lot closer to you on block, and also they're going to increase the hit stop on this as well. So in other words, when the opponent blocks this, the game's going to freeze a little bit on block, kind of like Maximum's Vapor Cannon when you get hit by it. So the opponent has an easier time to kind of just run up punish you. The move should already be punishable anyway, so it's not exactly a nerf here. It's more like a fix. Next up, the C version. So still talk about the same moves. So the C version of Moon Slash is no longer going to be fully invincible. It's now only going to be invincible to all aerial attacks. So you're only going to be able to use this as an anti-air only and not a wake up option. Next up, the hard version of Grand Saber, the follow-up, they're going to change it so that it's a hard knockdown now. So a common setup for Leona players is run slash from a blowback and then do another run slash. And the reason that's really good, let's see if I can set this up here. The reason this hard knockdown is good is because they could kind of set you up for an ambiguous cross up there. Alright, next up, this one's a pretty big change. So the A version of Excalibur is going to be a hard knockdown. It's going to do 100 damage instead of 60, and they're going to change the other properties too, like the landing recovery and how she ends up closer to you so that she gets this setup basically. And this is really good because Leona off of lights doesn't really have much. If you combo into the command normal, you get that. But now, if you have no bar, you can get this. So really good stuff for Leona. I think that's one of the biggest changes for her for this patch. Next up, EX Excalibur. So the last hit of this no longer hits multiple times during a combo. So that's just a glitch fix because there's like a almost infinite combo coming off of that. Slash Saber. Whoops, wrong motion. So they added a B version of this, and really there's really no significance to this. Basically the only thing it allows you to do is combo off of far B, and that's not really a big deal. It's such a random change. I'm not sure why they did it. You could still use the super pretty much it's the same exact wave you've always have, so it's not a big deal. Alright, that's it with Leona. Let's move on to Clark. Alright, so not a whole lot of changes to Clark, so his part's going to be really short. Right off the bat, his air grab's going to have some expanded reach, so it's going to be easier to get that more consistently. And the reason you don't see air grabs as often in 15 is because they simply just don't have the same reach as they did in 13, so they're just not as good. Next up, the A version, the Vulcan is now going to have a C version. So that's the C version. This is the A version. He doesn't move forward at all. The C version moves forward by quite a bit. And that's really the only difference. In terms of damage, startup, recovery, they're all both versions are pretty much the same. Now, what does this do for Clark? It gives him new combos in the corner. So let me demonstrate this. So you could do something like that. There's probably a better combo out there. So you will have to experiment with that. But I don't think it's going to change too much for Clark in the grand scheme of things. It's just going to add some combo potential in the corner. Next up, his Frankensteiner is now going to be considered on the ground during movement. So the previously, if you're playing against Clark and you're going to punish a Frankensteiner, the problem is that when you anticipate it and you neutral jump and punish it, you're air resetting the Clark player, so you're not going to get a full combo because he's considered in the air. Now they're going to make it so that he is considered on the ground, so you get that full punish for anticipating it right. And there I kind of messed up. There you go. So now you can get a full punish basically. The other change to Frankensteiner is that if you don't do the follow-up and he does the taunt, you're gonna get more meter off of it. So typically, this is what the meter build looks like when you do the elbow. So when the elbow doesn't give you that much, right? But when you let's say you forget to do the elbow, you're gonna get rewarded with a little bit more meter. A really random small buff. I guess a lot of collect players kind of sometimes forget to do the follow up afterwards, and so if you do, then no biggie. At least you get more meter out of it. Again, pretty random, but I guess it's something for collect players. Anyways, that's it for him. So let's move on to Ralf. Alright, last up we have Ralf. So along with Vanessa and Terry, Ralf was another character that a lot of people complained about and they wanted him to be nerfed, but after looking through the patch notes, I don't think Ralf players have anything to be worried about. You have these godlike things that went from being godlike to just really good, and honestly, at the end of the day, Ralf is still a very scary and threatening character. There are characters like Cuckoo who got nerfed way harder than he did. So let's go ahead and take a look. So Farsi, you're going to look at 4 lines of nerfs and you're going to be thinking, oh my god, he got majorly nerfed. No, most of these are meaningless. It's still a really good button. It's still super fast. Beats opponents out of the air cleanly. And the nerfs to this is pretty much meaningless. Like reduce cancel window, reduce hit stop on hit. Like that doesn't really take away anything from this button. So honestly, it's not a loss here. For D though, this is a button where you can feel the nerfs, so the range for this has been reduced horizontally and vertically, so it does an anti-air as well, and you're gonna lose to a lot of hops from now on, so which is fine because you could just be using Farsi instead. They also made this recover a little bit slower, and they added a hurtbox right before the attack triggers, meaning that he's gonna be more hittable out of this move. Now this button is still really good. It comes out fast for how far it reaches. And honestly, you can still confirm into a quick max like that. So don't worry about, if you're a Ralf player, it's not too big of a loss. It's just less abusable. It's still one of the better FARDs in the game. Next up, crouching B, increased startup from 4 to 5 frames, so it's a little bit slower, but again, it's still a really good bind. It's a low hitting move, special cancelable. You could combo 3 of them together, so not a huge loss. Jumping blowback, they're going to expand their hurt box of this, so characters are going to be able to beat him out of this or kind of at least trade, whereas before they had a hard time beating him cleanly out of his jumping blowback. Next up, Jet Upper, they're going to reduce the overall frames by 4 on the normal version, so not the cancel version, so that means it recovers a little bit faster, and I guess that's somewhat of a buff, but nothing major. Next up, Ralf Dynamite Punch, so they expanded the hurt box of this upward, meaning that it's easier to hit him out of this move, whereas before it kind of had, like while doing this move, he had somewhat of a low profile. Next up, the C version of this, they greatly increased the overall frame, so it takes a lot longer for him to recover, so that's a huge recovery. I'm just holding up here trying to jump. Reduce knockback distance on blocks, so if they try to, if you jump in, you bait this, and they were too slow on this, now you're really close and you could get a full punish. And they also changed the attack follow window to 0, so if you don't know what that is, when he anti-air with this, he used to be able to get a follow-up, and now he's not able to do that anymore, even on counter hit. Next up, EX Dynamite Ralf Punch. The startup went from 13 to 11, so this is actually faster, so somewhat of a buff here. And then next up, Vulcan Punch. So this is a move that no Ralf player really uses, so this is kind of meaningless. So this one, but let's go over it. So reduce attack startup from 14 to 8. So this one's a little bit faster. They also changed it so that's a hard knockdown. And they changed the damage from 80 to 100. So, it's a lot better than what it used to be, but it's still not that great of a special. And they also increased the input window duration, so you can mash longer. Now next up, C Gatling no longer hits multiple times during a combo. So for this combo here, you used to be able to do like C Gatling and then an EX, whatever this is, and then another C Gatling in the corner, which is just like ungodly damage and just ridiculous. So they're just taking that away, but it's not really that much of a nerf because Ralf still has a really damaging combo. So you could go from this to C Gatling to A Gatling. And if you super cancel it, you get 500 damage. And even if you do the 1.5 bar combo, you still get 500 damage. So Ralf's damage is still there. He's still a fucking beast. Next up, Galactica Phantom EX version. They increased the hit stop on the first hit and expanded hitbox on the second hit. So really this is just going to make this combo more possible here. So if I do C Gatling into A Gatling, charge this. So the second hit used to whiff a lot mid-screen, and now they just make it so it hits more consistently. But to me, it doesn't really matter because most people are going to use the super instead. Whoops, wrong one. Which does more damage, so nobody's going to use that punching super anyways. Next one, bareback Vulcan Punch. So this is that super that I was just talking about. They're going to reduce the cancel window to cancel this into climax. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically if you got this super, you can delay your climax activation here and kind of wait till he hits the ground or lower to the ground. And that time I did it too late, but either way, it doesn't really matter because that's just going from super to climax, which no matter what, you're just going to do a lot of damage. Now you're just going to have a bit of a different timing to cancel into it. And then lastly, the EX version, expanded grab box after the first hit. I don't really think that changes anything because this combo lands pretty consistently. And it doesn't really change anything for Ralf. So overall, Ralf has remained mostly untouched. Far D is just a lot less. It's not as good as what it used to be. Quarter circle back C. When you anti everything, you're not gonna get any. You're not gonna get the same conversions as you used to. You don't have the ridiculous corner combo with 2C Gatlings, but at the end of the day, Ralf still has a lot of damage. So, for example, this is still a thing here. So you can do this. Get the OTG, 340 damage, still a lot. If you spend 1.5, 2 bars, or you just do a more efficient combo in general, you're still going to get way more damage than your average character in the roster. So, conclusion, Ralf is still a really good character. These nerfs are honestly not that bad.